Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
What are some of the creepiest things which you experienced in your life? Can be paranormal, but creepy experiences with people, psychopaths, and weird things are okay too.
This is a story my mom told me. She was living in a small apartment with my oldest half-brother, who was just a baby then. She was around about 17 at the time. My mom was sitting in a chair in her room reading, and my brother was in his crib between herself and the wall. Out of the blue, she describes how she got this feeling of dread. She could sense some sort of malicious intent directed towards her, and when she looked around to find the source, she saw a dark shadow clinging to the corner of where the two walls meet the ceiling. But it wasn't a normal shadow. It had more substance, almost like a dark, wispy mass that was kind of transparent, but darkened the wall in a way a normal shadow wouldn't. She sat there watching it in shock and almost as if the thing was an oil leak. It started spreading, the edges broadening, getting bigger. She said she was terrified, and in that moment she knew that she had to get out. She picked up the baby, ran out of the house, called her mom, my grandma, from a neighbor's place to come from work and get her. They got a hotel until they could find a new place to live. She never went back. She only ever told me this story once. When I've tried to ask her about it again when I'm in a spoopy mood, she gets really serious and says something along the lines of, "Don't talk about things like that. They feed off of fear and attention, and it gives them power." My mom is not superstitious, uneducated, or gullible. And the way she told me this story, I could tell by her body language that she wasn't bullshitting me. That's not to say this was really a malevolent spirit, but if you know somebody well, you can tell when they are serious, and my mom has never been so dead serious about anything like that in my life.
True story here, was 15 or 16, walking to a nearby convenience store to get some shit with a mate of mine for lunch or whatever. The main path goes along a busy road and bridge. However, there is a shorter way via the old abandoned wooden bridge that is no longer in use. The whole road up to it is obscured by trees and overgrowth. Decide to take that way. Me and my mate are walking across an abandoned bridge, and two middle-aged, unkempt-looking men are walking towards us from the other side. As we pass them, they stand in front of us, and one of them says, "Sorry lads, bridge is closed." Haha, yeah, good one. We kept walking right past them. They kind of linger on the bridge and look back at us as we're walking. As we reach the other side of the bridge back onto the old bitumen road, there is what appears to be a pile of schoolgirls' belongings, pencils, pink backpack, junk, and I think some shoes. Think nothing of it. Go to shop and get food and come back the same way. As we pass by the same spot, everything has been torched into a pile of ashes. Still think nothing of it. It only occurred to me that this was weird in hindsight about 2 or 3 years later when I explained the story to an ex-girlfriend of mine, and she said I should really report it. I've thought about it, but the incident is too long ago and too obscured by time to even bother with now.
When I was younger, probably around 7 or 8, I would walk to and from school by myself. It wasn't far, and this was back before all of the stranger danger fear. My house was directly behind a library which had a stone wall separating our backyard from the back of the library. I would hop that wall, go through the overgrown grass to the left, come out the side of the library, walk down the sidewalk, walk over an overpass bridge to the school. Very close. Never had any issues until one day. I hop the wall in my backyard, land in the grass, and when I turn around, there is a disheveled man standing against the back wall of the library. He was spraying Windex on the wall and using a rag to rub in circles. I remember how weird that was because nobody else ever came back here, that I'd seen, and it seemed pointless to clean a dirty wall that nobody ever saw. He turned around and smiled at me, and he looked really, really familiar, though to this day I still can't place it. Almost like a cousin or uncle that you see once in a while at family reunions. I felt like I had met him and had some connection to him, even though it wasn't a familiarity per se. Anyway, I felt pretty comfortable with him for that reason, and I was a kid, so I was naturally friendly and curious. We made small talk, and I asked him what he was doing behind the library. Was he a janitor? Why was he cleaning a wall, etc.? He avoided all of my questions and asked me about myself, where I lived, what classes I had that day, if anyone knew where I was. I started to get a really weird vibe from him, which I should have to begin with, but I was a dumb kid. So I made an excuse about how I was going to be late for school, awkwardly waved, and ran off. I turned around before I turned the corner to get to the main sidewalk, and he was following me. I took off running, looked behind me around the time I got to the overpass bridge, and he wasn't there. But it wasn't the last time I saw him. Fast forward a few weeks or maybe months. Still living in the same place, but obviously I had stopped using that shortcut. So the new shortcut was to leave my house from the front, walk through the neighborhood, go through a big parking lot outside of a Lutheran church, and then cut through the church, which was largely empty at that hour, to come out next to the overpass bridge. So one day I'm taking this route. I'm walking through the parking lot and I hear this growl. I turn around and there's this huge dog-looking thing snarling at me with the very clear body language of, "I'm about to ruin your fucking day, mate." Of course, I take off running and screaming my ass off. I run to the front door of the church, try it, it's locked. I turn to take the path I normally take, which leads to the main road by the overpass bridge, but the dog runs up and blocks my path. I book it in the other direction, around the backside of the church, which means it will take 3 times longer to get to the main road, but I'm not about to try to go through this doggo. So I'm hoofing it around the back of the church and I almost run straight into a pastor. I don't know if they're called that at Lutheran churches, but he was dressed like he was about to drop a sermon. I scream that there's a dog or a wolf after me, and he tells me to calm down and he'll keep me safe. He takes my hand. We walk back towards the direction I ran from, turn the corner, and there's the dog. He shouts at it and makes some aggressive gestures, and it sits down and watches calmly. "It's going to be okay. You must be so scared. Why don't you follow me? I'll get you some orange juice and you'll feel better." I got a weird vibe then, like how TF is orange juice going to untraumatize me, and when I took a closer look at him I realize it's the fucking dude. I pull my hand out of his and run back towards my house. I don't look behind me, but he doesn't follow me and neither does the dog. I get in trouble for not going to school, but I tell my mom what happened and she calls the cops. I stay home. Later that day, my mom is talking to one of the cops and he says that they checked out the church and didn't find any traces of a man or a dog.
Don't really know why I am recalling this now because I thought it was buried in my mind deep enough to go away for good. Anyways, I remember when I was a young teen I would always go out to my cousin's place. He lived on a badass lake and had all the cool toys. Us two were basically amphibious for as far back as I could remember. One night, we took his dad's shitty lake boat out into the middle of the lake to do some fishing. We got buzzed off some booze we stole out of the liquor cabinet and rigged up some gay lures we made out of glow sticks and plastic bottles. We stayed out there for what seemed like forever. We were so isolated from everything, it almost felt like we were in another world. There was no sound, no moonlight, no wind, no disturbances on the water, and no goddamn fish either. Both of us were kinda dozing after a bit, and then some freaky shit started happening. My cousin and I started seeing shit all around us, just faint outlines of motion that would break up the stillness of the surrounding tree line. We were doing the typical bravado shit that young guys do, like the, "Did you see that over there?" Yeah. What was that?" "No clue. Let's go check it out." "Man, I don't think we should. Something doesn't feel right about this." Needless to say, we were both properly spooking ourselves. We settled down for a few minutes after we dropped the bullshit and both of us were ready to call it a night. Then at what I can describe as only the most inconvenient possible time, like when you have your guard completely lowered, the engine alarm starts blaring. If you have never heard an old Merc engine alarm, just imagine the most shrill, ear-piercing shit you can think of. It only ever comes on when the engine is hot. The weird part was that the engine was off. It had been off the whole damn time we were out there. Exactly as our ears started bleeding, some winged figure flew right over us. I guess it looked sort of like an owl, except it was big. It didn't make any sound. It followed a perfect flight path, unwavering in altitude, and it was fast too. We both screamed like little girls and I hopped on that engine so fast. Ripped that thing into throttle and blasted out of there. Fuck the fish. Fuck the cinder block anchor. I don't think I ever shit my pants that hard in any other point of my life.
Okay, good. I'm glad this thread popped up on the main page again, and I wanted some spoops. Halfway through reading, I started to wonder if anything weird has happened to me. Not necessarily alien or ghost, but just weird in general. I finally remembered. Not entirely sure when this started, but it's been at least 3-4 years since then. Living at home with parents, my parents' house. Small community microtown just outside the capital city, 30 minutes away, give or take. Moved out there from the city when I was around 19. Odd address, shared driveway, new custom built by my parents' house on an empty lot in a nice neighborhood, new phone number, but first house of ours that ever got broken into. Don't go for the windowed doors on your garage, kids. They'll just see if no vehicles are home in the middle of the day, kick in your front door, scare the shit out of your 2 cats, lightly flip through the bedrooms, and only take all the real gold. Only a couple months into moving in. Living there with no incident, otherwise until I'm early to mid-20s. I started staying up later and later due to getting shifts at my city job that would end at 12:30 a.m., half past midnight. Or later. Oh yeah, retail. Would arrive home by 1 a.m. or later. Mostly a physical labor job, always picks up near closing to get out on time, blood flowing, can't unwind and get tired until like 3 a.m. Would also wait until my parents got to sleep and play video games for a couple of hours before bed. Got into a habit of staying up until sometimes 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., then waking up at like 2 p.m., getting ready for work, then repeating the process. The nights I started staying up really late, I started to notice something. If I wasn't wearing headphones or already falling asleep, I had to be at least mostly awake. I would sometimes miss it entirely if I was starting to nod off. 5:30 a.m., the phone would ring. It would ring once, 1 ring, or 1.5. That's the thing. It's so late at night, / early in the morning, that you're so tired you just forget everything that happened in that last hour that you passed out. Like, by the time you get out of bed and start thinking about the day ahead of you, it's gone. It may have happened to you, when a housemate or sibling keeps making noise super late at night, but by the time you wake up, you have shit to do and you can't remember that you were going to tell them to shut up at night, so you spend the whole day around them all cool until late at night when they're doing it again. So at first, I jumped. The phone was ringing at 5:30 fucking a.m. Telemarketer? No, way too early even for that. Foreign time zone telemarketer? Did grandma die? Oh shit. Oh, it was only like a bit of a ring, probably a wrong number, lol. Wait, did my parents answer it? There's a phone right by their bed. Whatever. Next time I'm up late, it happens again. I jumped again. Wait, what the hell? Come on, again. And it's 5:30 a.m. Okay, that's weird, but I mean, maybe it's some company who got a wrong number to call someone back. Those guys are punctual. Maybe I'll ask my parents tomorrow. Obviously forget. Next time I'm up late enough, ring. 5:30 a.m. Now I'm just pissed. Oh, fuck you. I am trying to relax, and my parents are asleep, and I mean shit. It's the most awkward and inconvenient time to get a phone call. They're gonna get so worried. I am definitely bringing this up. We have to do something. Blip. Forgot. Like nothing happened. I remembered playing video games. I remembered doing everything in those games. I even remembered the snacks and drinks I had. Even the thoughts I was having. But not that phone. It kept happening. Consistently. The times I was up late for strings of nights in a row, it would happen every night. But if I was asleep, I never noticed. Never even woke up. Sometimes I'd hear my parents snort awake and whisper to each other when it happened. Sometimes I'd even hear them answer, but no response. They'd never mention anything, though. I mean, did they forget too? They're just about elderly aged. This goes on for years, but I'm rarely awake to hear it most nights. Fast forward those 3 or 4 years I mentioned until a couple months ago from now. Finally, I moved back into the city with my parents. Apartment near city center. New phone number, new phones, new unusual address. Really awkward location too. Hard to order pizza. Phone gets hooked up in the first week or two. I get the place to myself for the first month. Parents finally move in after the first month with the rest of the furniture and stuff. We're all settled in. I'm working a new retail job that has me awake at earlier hours. I lose the job on good terms 3 months later. And while searching for my next one, I fall back into my old sleep habits. Yep, you got it. Ring-a-ling, 5:30 a.m. It's still happening. It's probably going to happen again tonight. I'm never near enough to reach the phone in time. Even if I was, the ring is so brief that by the time I notice, reach, grab it, and lift it to my ear, it'll be done. And honestly, I don't know if I want to hear what might be on the other line. I don't even care who was phone. No, this is not that shitty meme. I'm just kind of hoping this thing stops at least when I remember it at all.
There's some really good stories in this thread. Thanks for sharing, guys. I'll share one of my own. This is a short incident that happened 2 years ago, during the summer of 2014. I was embarking on a study abroad trip to Costa Rica. As of now, this has been my only encounter with something I can call a UFO. So the flight to Costa Rica was about 8 or 9 hours. My group and I spent around 7 hours in the air on our way to a connecting flight in San Salvador, where we would then board our final flight to San Jose. This happened during the short flight, around 1 or 1.5 hours, from San Salvador to San Jose. It was very late when we boarded the plane to San Jose, probably around 11:30 p.m. As you can imagine, a lot of the students in my group were exhausted from all of the travel thus far. So many people slept through this entire flight. I was awake. I can never sleep on planes. Although I had a window seat for this flight, there wasn't that much to see. At this point, we were mostly flying over rainforest. Since there wasn't anyone on the plane to talk with, I sat looking out my window. Eventually, I noticed something peculiar in the sky. Off in the distance flashed a round white light. It would flash on and off at precise intervals, about every few seconds. At first, I thought it was another plane, but planes generally flash more than one color. Next, I considered a cell tower, but being that this thing was keeping pace with the plane and that we were flying over the middle of nowhere, I ruled that out too. So I continued to watch this thing for a few more minutes until it eventually flashed off indefinitely. Of course, this creeped me out. I didn't start talking about it until a year or so later. I never even made mention of it to anyone during the trip. For now, I have this thing classed as a UFO. I would love to hear more thoughts about this.
When I was around 3 years old up to when I moved put of the house after my parents divorced when I was 7, random shit would happen. Things being misplaced and disappearing, then reappearing a while later. But the main thing that happened was things hitting my bedroom windows at night. Now my house was in a clearing, so no trees could be tapping on them. And it sounded more like when you throw a snowball at a window. My room was built about 16 x 14 feet with a closet and 2 windows. One faced the woods on the side and the other faced the front yard. Anyways, back to the things hitting windows at first. When I was 3-ish, it happened only once a month. Then when I was 4, I had this nightmare that some sort of lizard-like creature with red eyes came crawling out of my closet and started to come near my bed. I woke up screaming, and my dad came running in with his gun, because he said he heard the closet going nuts and opening and slamming shut rapidly. I slept in my parents' bed the rest of the night. After that, the dream kept recurring, and the lizard thing kept getting closer, and the things hitting the windows increased. Whenever my dad went to look, there were sticks and rocks all around my windows, mainly the one facing the woods. After the 3rd time the dream happened, my dad came into the room at about the time it happened and watched. He said they just started doing that, and then I woke up. I told him about the lizard, and my mom thought to get a priest to come spread holy water and stuff. I eventually started to sleep on the pull-out couch in the living room, and the dream stopped along with the things hitting the windows. Until I was 6, I eventually went back to sleeping in my room. The dream came back, but worse, I woke up screaming, and the lizard was on top of my chest. The closet doors were ripped off their hinges, and the windows were shattered from the rocks and sticks. My parents came running in, my dad with his gun and my mom with a Bible. My dad wasn't religious but took it up after this. They flipped and were mad. They called the cops and they found nothing. We hired people to wall the closet off and replace the windows, as well as a priest to do his stuff on the wall we stayed in at a hotel. Through this whole ordeal, my mom didn't believe my dad because he drank a lot and we were poor as shit and couldn't afford a camera. So he couldn't prove it, but that was the last straw for her. I never got to see him because he moved to Florida and remarried, and I moved 2 hours north after moving around that town. To this day, when a bird hits the window, or someone opens a closet, the kind that slides, I nearly shit myself and can barely cope with said noises sucked during hailstorms and windy days when we had windows open in the summer. But that's the only story I can really think of that was creepy.
The day my grandfather died, he asked me to play him a song on guitar. I refused. He died that evening. Next morning, I'm alone as my family went to see the corpse. In my computer chair, I get this urge to move back a couple meters and to the left. I swing back a few feet and sit there. Then I randomly pick up the guitar and start to play and sing. I'm starting to cry now. With my eyes closed, as my eyes fill with tears, the room becomes very bright and shiny. The tears in my eyes are now super bright, and there is a flashing silver light in front of my eyes. I open my eyes whilst playing, and there is a shiny silver crucifix on the wall in front of me. It is flashing, reflecting and dancing in the light. One ray of light has come through a curtain. It has landed precisely on my guitar and reflected exactly on the crucifix in a room of darkness. I was so scared my body was shaking, which made the light on the cross really flashing as it was shaking about. Everything else was dark. It's impossible for the light to reach the crucifix, other than reflecting off the guitar which I was playing in the perfect position.
Not a whole lot has happened to me, but earlier in the summer at my parents' house that is supposedly haunted, I was home alone. We have 3 dogs in the house, but they're all less than 10 pounds tops, and to my knowledge, all downstairs with me. I was down in the study trying to get the router to behave, which sits directly beneath the main hallway of the upstairs. I'm fiddling with the router with 2 dogs and the cat having followed me to the study, when directly above me I hear what sounds like someone running and shutting doors. Not like strange sounds of thumps and such. I mean the sounds you hear when your upstairs neighbors in an apartment are having a fight, minus the yelling. My first instinct is sprinting up the stairs and clearing each room up the stairs with a gun drawn. Obviously nothing was up there, and I pretty much never turned the lights off that night. Also, the actual most terrifying shit happened a few months later, around July time, but not paranormal. Given the parents' work schedule, they spent a lot of weekends out of town with me alone watching the house. Must have been about 3 a.m., when in the silence of night I hear a loud thump and the growling of the dogs. Naturally, I grab my rifle and run to the top of the stairs. The house is pitch black, but I can see the glass screen door being pushed open. Then I realize the bang I heard was the pop of the old handle on that door. We always kept the main back door open because the glass screen door has the dog door in it, and I know the lock doesn't always engage due to its shoddy brass frame. Well, first thing I do, which I admit was a bit extreme, was pop a warning shot through the crack of the door. The whole moment seemed like it lasted a full minute, and I swear time was moving so slow I could see the shot move through the air. Next thing I know, the door popped shut like whoever was pushing it just dropped it. Next thing I hear is the sound of the fence being climbed over. I checked the backyard and saw no indication I hit anybody. Just a hole in the dirt. Called the police and they showed up after the longest 5 minutes of my life. They really didn't have anything to go off of, but assured me of all the alternatives I probably did the right thing, scaring them off. They mentioned that new housing developments like the one behind our neighborhood would often be the perfect place for homeless people and looters, and how it would be entirely possible they spotted a dark, empty house and went to make a quick buck. Nobody was ever caught or found in the development. The real kicker to this was, however, that the next day I heard a knock at the door and found our housewife neighbor in tears on the other side. She hysterically explained to me her 2 teenage boys came home late last night, around the same time the police arrived. She explained she managed to get the information out of them that they and their friends liked to play a game to see who among them was the toughest and coolest, essentially. Basically, they snuck into people's yards and would see what they could get away with, like getting in pools or opening back doors, just to see what they get away with. When I sternly told her that her son was a few inches away from eating a bullet, she broke down bawling.
I told her that at least her kids wouldn't do it again, and she left. Found out later the kids moved on to opening unlocked cars and stealing things in them, but nobody could catch them in the act.
A few months ago, in July, my cat, who is usually social with my family, is extremely distant and timid. Stayed alone upstairs all day, would hang out on the stairs, but looked like he was very worried. Later that night, he jumped up to my bed out of nowhere, but his eyes were wide and his ears were flipped back. He stood beside me and meowed a couple of times towards the window on the other side of the room. His meows are never like this. Normally, he meows sound like two rocks rubbing against each other. Calm him down and pet him a bit before he storms off upstairs. I go to bed. Wake up at 2 in the morning. The cat is laying right beside me. Hear birds chirping. I can feel my cat slowly moving closer to me, to the point where I can feel him breathing rapidly. His ears go back and a blue dot flashes at the edge of my bed. Then again in the centre of my room, and finally down the hall towards the back door. Stay up the rest of the night. About a week later, my mum heard someone call my name upstairs, despite being alone.
Okay, so it's not really creepy, just disturbing. Please, I apologize for the wrong grammar. I'm French and don't speak English very well. Be me, back in 2010, 16 years old, had multiple surgical interventions in my legs and my back during childhood. Has 3 metallic supports in legs and back. Now I'm at school, sports class, and have to sit down, write the scores and stuff like that because I'm disabled. I feel dizzy, I have a malaise, I have to be carried to the next hospital. They detect a Staphylococcus aureus in the metallic support in my back. Fuck my life.jpg. They sent me to Paris to get operated on as quickly as possible because I might die. Get operated on. It goes well, but I have to stay in an artificial coma during Christmas and New Year's Eve, and for around 2 weeks after that. Then I wake up. I'm injected with so much morphine, I can barely stay awake 3 hours a day. During these 3 hours every day, I have hallucinations. Here's a quick list of them. The first thing I remember is being in my room, sharing it with some kind of very fat Korean girl. I was in a solo room in reality. People take care of her, and I almost die because I'm not fed. Then, some kind of Vietnamese girl helped me out of my bed and took me to a secret corridor, very thin, barely enough place to walk. Someone shoots at us through the wall. She dies in front of me. The hospital is controlled by a Chinese mafia cult. They want to recruit me and make me a teacher because they saw that I would be good at it by reading my palm. The Chinese cult forced me to watch some kind of cartoon filled with sexual stuff for some reason. My mother tells me she gave me to this mafia so they pay for her breast operation cancer. She didn't have cancer at all, in reality. I'm trapped in a box. The mafia wants to send me to China to use me. I don't know why. The cult controls every branch of government and can read everybody's future in their palm. When I slowly came back to my mind, around March 2011, I was still shocked and had trouble distinguishing dreams from reality. My mother told me to write this all down, but I didn't want to. Now I regret it, because there were a lot of other dreams of the same kind, but I don't remember them.
Okay, this happened a while ago, but still don't know how to feel about it. B16 me. Was in a sleepover with 2 of my friends V and C. We were at C's house. Everybody thinks C's house is haunted because some weird shit happened to everybody who slept there. Wake up really early next day because I wanted to go to the bathroom. C and her mother lived there with her aunt and her 2 cousins. I go downstairs and was about to leave the room when I see a figure passing by in front of me really fast in the hallway. Thought it was C's aunt, so I don't think much of it. Go to bathroom and then to the kitchen to say hello to the aunt. The hallway led to the kitchen directly. Aunt is not there. What's going on? .jpg. Sleepy mind invents something I can remember, and I don't think too much of it. Go back to sleep. Later that morning, when we all 3 are awake, I asked C what happened. She stared at me. What exactly did you see, Anon? IDK. Somebody with dark hair, a white shirt, and brown or black pants. Why? C looks at V before asking me again, what time was it when you saw my aunt? Around 9 a.m. She laughs and says that it wasn't her aunt who I saw, but a ghost she named Felipe. Asked how she knew that. She said that her aunt is a teacher, so she leaves early with her sister and she takes the kids to school, and that by that time she is at work. Weeks pass, and I forget about that until one day I see the same figure walking really fast towards my kitchen. Start to freak out and decide to tell my mom about it. Describe the man. I think it was a man. To her, and she says she knows who he is. He is my grandfather, her father, who she used to see when she was pregnant with me until she asked him not to visit her anymore.
I was actually just thinking about a past experience I had in middle school. I'm 19 now, and thinking back to it actually raised some question I hadn't thought of back then. So when I was in middle school, the upper floor of the building had a hallway room called the fire hall. Whenever there was a fire drill, all the classes on the second floor had to evacuate through that specific hallway because it led outside. I was sitting in the hall with a couple old friends and was messing around with a digital recorder I had because I was that one kid who didn't have an iPod or an MP3 player at the time, so I just recorded music off the radio and TV. Moving along, we recorded ourselves making fun of another student. 'Cause it's middle school, we were immature. Yeah. One of the friends asked me to play it back to see what it sounded like. And I did. It played back like normal. Us making fun of the other student, then laughing. Then I heard something out of place towards the end of the recording. I shrugged it off, and we headed back to class. During our recess, I snuck my headphones out and listened to the recording again. And, once again, something was out of place in the recording. One last play through, and my mind pieced it all together. At the end of the recording, mixed in with the laughter, was a woman's voice clearly saying, "Help me." I was ecstatic at the thought of catching an actual EVP, and went to tell my friends what I had heard. I had them listen to it again, and they both agreed. Of course, there were other kids who didn't believe me and said that it was me who said it. But I did not say anything, as I was also laughing in the recording. Back to class time, I walk into class and the teacher tells me to play the recording in front of her because a student told her about it, which was my fault for bragging. She claimed to hear nothing, and class moved on as usual. Fast forward to after lunch, I'm told to go to the principal's office. I go in, and right off the bat, delete the recording or you'll be suspended. Of course, I didn't want to be suspended, so I deleted it with no further questions. Fast forward to 8th grade. I was having troubles in school, yada yada. I ended up finding out that they boarded up the fire hall with a false wall. Now that I think back to it, I wonder if the EVP I had was a part of something no one was to know about. Still wish I had that recorder, though.
I was in the second year of college when this happened, went hiking with friends, 4 including me. Mount Argino, Welirang, well known for its ghost market. It's a phenomenon where you are inside a camp and here there are some kind of traditional market. Crowded and busy, going on outside, but when you take a look, it's dead silent. Kinda believed it, but wanted to check for myself. At 2,600-meter elevation, arrived at the valley where campers set their camp. Set our camp. It's unspoken rule that we have to go to sleep around 8-9 p.m. inside our camp. Being enthusiastic young men, we denied the rules. We set campfire and joked around. One of my friends wanted to sleep early. The name's Gecko or Tokek in our language. Tokek warned us to sleep early. Ignored him. We joke around louder beside the campfire. About half an hour, Tokek came outside, said he couldn't sleep, joined us. Suddenly he said, "Have to go to pee." "Wait here, guys, I need to pee and keep my head for a moment," said Tokek, while casually removed his head and put it in front of us. "What is this shit? WeBM. Rest of us run like there's no tomorrow, until I arrive at the first post where some locals were patrolling. Some guys tried to make me calm down, but I couldn't. My other 2 friends just arrived at the post. One of them passed out, the other bawl like a baby. None of us could explain clearly what happened. Half an hour later, the real Tokek showed up at post. "Where are you guys doing leaving me alone in the camp?" My bawling friend shouted at him uncontrollably. He yelled, "Your head was decapitated." Tokek confused as hell. I could understand what happened but couldn't talk it out, too shocked. Later morning, everything became clearer when my passed-out friend woke up and was already calm enough to explain what happened. Locals blame us for violating the rules and tell us to rest in the local village for a while and provide some purifications because they believe it was needed for someone who made contact with astral beings. I never went hiking again for the rest of my life.
Just so you know, the layout of my grandma's house, it's on a hill, so the back porch is screened in and basically a second story, and they built a room into it for me whenever I would visit, and it's on top of a storage room. The storage room isn't right by the door to the basement. Me and my cousin were about 10 or so home alone. No one wasn't home, and the gate to the backyard was locked. Earlier that day, my aunt came but put some weird flowers in the pond and said something about wishing with them would make our dreams come true. She is quite literally insane, always talking about aliens abducting her in the shower and the government's taking her organs while she's sleeping because she has bruises. She leaves and me and my cousin realize we need something from the basement and open the door, and we immediately hear scratching on the floor. Like something with claws isn't running to the door, so we slam it real quick. We try to figure out what's going on and decide it was just a critter. We did live in the south and see raccoons often, but the minute we open the door, we hear it again, and being home alone spooked us. We remembered the flowers and opened the door and asked if something was in there, scratched on my bedroom floor and left the flowers in there, and bolted to my room. Soon enough, we heard a loud grating sound, like a scratching from the room below me, and I never went into the basement ever again. TLDR, heard weird noises in the basement while home alone, and asked whatever was in there to show a sign something was there, and it did.
I've only got one creepy story aside from the occasional hearing a voice or seeing someone that isn't really there. Be 22 years old, work night shift at local Walmart. Creepy guy has been sitting on a bench near my station for hours. He stares at me the whole time. Shift ends at 4 a.m. I live in an apartment complex, walking distance from Walmart. About halfway home, I hear a cough behind me. Turn around. Same creepy guy. Start walking much faster. He gets a bit faster too. Rounding the corner to my apartment and peek behind me. He's still following me. Get to my door, fumbling in my purse to find keys. Unlock the door and quickly get in. Lock the door. Look out every window to see if he's out there. Don't see him anywhere. 6 a.m. trying to sleep. Can't sleep thinking about what just happened. Take sleeping pills. Go to sleep 1 or 2 hours later with socks on. I woke up a little after 10 a.m. to my door slamming. Notice that feet are uncovered. Socks off. Feet are wet and sticky. Pair of old fingerless cotton gloves at the foot of my bed. Socks, a pair of flip-flops and work shoes are missing. I got luckier than most would, since he was apparently only after my feet, but still, it was really unnerving knowing that a creepy homeless guy broke into my apartment and used my feet like that. After that, I was terrified, had like 4 more locks put on my door, and started driving to work. Saw that guy once after what happened sleeping in a park a few months ago. He had a few things on the ground next to him. He still had my old work shoes and socks.
On my 5th birthday, when I woke up, I was on the floor of my mom's bedroom. I didn't sleep there. I slept in the bottom bunk of my bunk bed. Her bedroom was diagonal to mine, so I could see into my room pretty clearly. I saw 2 full-size garden gnomes like the shit out of Goosebumps. Ended up running like Sonic out of my mom's room downstairs. Told my mom, she went up and said nothing was there. I went to show my grandma it later that night at my party. I saw them right there in my bed, and my senile grandma just said nothing was there. After the party ended, I went back up and they were gone, never seeing them after that. The only spooky thing to happen after that was a neighbor moved in with a bunch of gnomes about 2 years later. I'm pretty sure it was a prank, but I don't know how my parents would have done all of that without me knowing.
Fucking gnomes. I had a similar experience. My fiancée teases me about it, and she is the only person I have ever told my story to. Background: no history or family history of mental disorders. Father had sleep paralysis his entire life, so I know the symptoms and I have never experienced it. Be 16-year-old me, live in a super haunted house, get really into paranormal stuff to cope and listen to Coast to Coast. Hear about a man whose grandmother taught him about fairies. Said they usually ignore humans that ignore them, but they will be drawn to you and help you if you focus on them. Get really interested to see if fairies could help me improve my shitty, depressed life. I was suffering from depression and had trouble sleeping because of an entity in the house that caused everyone who lived there to be on edge and suffer emotionally. As soon as we entered the house, people felt like shit or were easily angered. I have a borderline phobia of pitch black darkness now because that is the color the entity appears in my room every night. Anyway, one night I woke up. My bed is alongside my upstairs window on my left. Window is open and has a screen on it. I was lying on my left side toward the window. Feel something the size of a large guinea pig laying next to me curled up against my belly. Still half asleep, so I just think it is my cat or dog. My dog and cat never sleep with me. Wait. Literally the second I think that I see a flash of movement. The thing bolted out the window. It was a blur, but I swear it looked like a biped human shape with a tall red hat and gray or blue clothes. I think it may have been feeding off of my energy. It was very creepy. And like I said, it wasn't sleep paralysis. I sat up and was able to move my head freely to watch it flee. I was able to feel my side and was totally creeped out.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.